Masechet Yevamot Daf Kof Bet. We're going to begin today talking about the type of shoe that is permissible to use for chalitza. We'll continue with the exact action that the Yevamah has to do, untying and removing the shoe. And then we're going to see on Amud Bet a discussion of the verb chalitza. Does it mean to take off, to put on? We'll see lots of other places where the same verb is used in the Tanakh. So we begin. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Rav. Im yavo Eliyahu v'yomar chotzin b'min'al, shom'in lo. En chotzin b'sandal, en shom'in lo. Shekevan nahagu ha'am b'sandal. The Mishnah already mentioned these two types of shoes, min'al and sandal, and the Mishnah said both of them are usable. So if Eliyahu comes and says, we can use a min'al, then yes, we would listen to him. Okay, sounds like min'al is questionable, and so if he says, well, we can use it, yes, we will use it. If the Eliyahu comes and says, do not use a sandal, we will not listen to him because we already have a practice that we use a sandal. So it sounds from here that the sandal is even better. That's the best way to thing to use. And the min'al is still questionable until he says that we can use it. So we see here something amazing, that a custom, a practice that's already widespread in Israel is more powerful than anything, and even Eliyahu Navi coming and saying, "Oh, you can't do that," will not change the precedent of the way we practice. Okay, that's all one version of what Rav said in the name of Rabbah, from Rabbah. However, Rav Yosef has a different version. Amar Rav Kahana Amar Rav, Im yavo Eliyahu v'yomar en chosin b'min'al shom'in lo. If Eliyahu should come and say, we do not use a min'al, then we will listen to him. So in this version, it sounds like we currently do use a min'al. Min'al, remember, is a soft shoe. So because it's soft, it would have buckles and some other things to hold it in place. So we would if he says use it, then we will use it. Sounds like right now we would not. I'm sorry, the opposite. If he says do not use it, we listen to him. That means right now we are using it, but if he says not, then we won't, because it's not so important. En chosim besandal, en shomin lo, shekavan nahagua am besandal. The second half is the same as in both versions. If he says do not use a sandal, we will not listen to him because that is the precedent, the customary practice. So sandal for sure is good, and the min'al is subject to these two different versions. So we ask, my benaihu, what's the difference between Rabbah's version of Rav and Rav Yosef's? Ika benaihu min'al lechatechila. The difference would be, nowadays, can you use a min'al lechatechila? According to Rabbah, you cannot use it lechatechila. Only if Eliyahu comes and says, chosin b'min'al, then we'll use it. But right now, lechatechila, we won't use it. But the avad, it could be fine. However, according to Rav Yosef, who says if Eliyahu comes and says don't use it, fine, then we won't use it. But right now, yes, we use it lechatechila. So Rav Yosef is the more lenient than Rabbah regarding using this soft shoe lechatechila. Now, ulman damar afilu lechatechila, the one who says that yes, you can use it, meaning Rav Yosef. So we have a question. V'hatanan chalsa b'min'al chalisata keshera te'avad in lechatechila la. In our Mishnah, it says if someone used a min'al, then it's okay. It sounds like b'diavad it's okay. It doesn't say you should use this lechatechila. So how can he explain the Mishnah? And we answer simply, it's the style of the Mishnah and parallelism. Hu adin afilu lechatechila. Really, you can use the soft shoe min'al ab initio. V'ayde de ba'al mitne sefa be'an pilya chalisata pesula. Because in the next clause, it's going to talk about the anpiliya. This is a cloth shoe, like a sock. And there it's going to say, if you do it, pesula, even b'di'avad, it's no good. So therefore, we use the same language in the Resha. We say the chalitza is okay, and the sefa chalitza is not okay, even though they're both formulated in di'avad and b'di'avad language. That's only for parallelism, but really the min'al would be okay lechatechila. All right, good. So that Rav Yosef was able to answer his question, and now we show that this machloket amoraim between Rabbah and Rav Yosef is actually parallel to or machloket, an earlier one from Tanaim. Uminal lechatechila Tanaihi using minal lechatechila is a machloket Tanaim. That Tanya Amar Rabbi Yosef. פעם אחת הלכתי לנסיבין ומצאתי זקן אחד. So one time I went up to Nisivin, up in Turkey, a city, important city, and he found an elder there. אמרתי לו, כלום אתה בקיא ברבי יהודה בן בתרה. Rabbi Yosef, who's fourth generation Tana, found this elder and said, did you know Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera? He was already from a couple of generations before. Rabbi Yosef didn't know him directly. The elder said, Amar li hen, hu tadir. Says, yes, I knew him. He used to eat at my home often. Kelum ra'ita shechalas b'bama. So he says, oh, fantastic. Do you have a memory to whether Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera ever did chalitza for Yevamot? Did he rule over a chalitza? Did he perform such ceremonies? Amar li, ra'iti shechalas harbe pamim. Yes, I saw. He oversaw many times, many chalitza ceremonies. Okay, bimin'al or bisandal. And when he did preside over the ceremonies, what did he use? A min'al or the sandal, the soft shoe or the hard one? Amar li v'chi chosin b'min'al. The elder said, what? Can you use a min'al? In other words, nobody uses a min'al. Okay, some versions have here Torah mira na'alo v'lo min'alo. Torah says na'al and not min'al, even though they're almost the same exact word, and really na'al is a biblical word. Min'al is a rabbinic word. So these kind of mean the same thing. Some versions of the Talmud don't have it. Okay, anyway, he said, no, there's no way you could use a min'al. Amarti lo, imken, mara Rabbi Meir lomar chalsa b'min'al chalisata keshera. And so Rabbi Yosef said, what do you mean, what do you mean, elder? If, in fact, there's no possibility of using a min'al, then why would Rabbi Meir have said that if someone did use a min'al, b'di'avad, it's okay? So you see that it seems that there is a possibility of using a min'al. Okay, that's Rabbi Meir according to this version of the story. Rabbi Yaakov omer mishema. However, Rabbi Yaakov says in the name of Rabbi Meir, chosim b'min'al lecha techila. He says that according to Rabbi Meir, you can not only b'di'avad, you can even use it lecha techila. So here you go. This is the machloket Tanaim. It seems, according to the elder, according to the Rabbi said, min'al is not good at all. But we're focusing on Rabbi Meir. Within the Rabbi Meir, there's two versions. One said, b'di'avad, it's no good. Lechatechila, it's no good. B'di'avad, it's okay. And the other said, lechatechila, it is okay. So there you go. These two versions of Rabbi Meir, by two different Tanaim, parallels the machloket between Rabbah and Rav Yosef. Good. Now, if you say min'al, you should not use lechatechila. Why? Well, what could be wrong with a min'al? Maybe because the way it's constructed is that it has a soft, let's say, upper sole or tongue on top that covers the top of the foot. And then above that, because it's soft, it has to be strapped on. So you have these leather straps that are on top of the of the top of the shoe. And so then you have two layers of leather above the foot. Torah said take off the shoe from on top of his foot and not from on top of his foot. In other words, it has to be a direct layer above his foot and not two layers. There are some that say maybe the Yavam should not even wear a sock, because a sock could be, not directly on his skin. Others say, no, a sock is just a cloth, that would be okay. But the point is that two layers of leather, the tongue or the flaps on top of it, and then the leather straps above that. So then she's undoing a shoe on top of a shoe. It's like having a double shoe. Now, if that's the problem, lo, well then that would be a serious problem, and even b'di'avad it would not be okay if you're really considering it like two shoes, like two layers. So rather we say no, it's a lesser problem. Really, it's okay, but midrabanan we say gizera mishum min'al merupat. We're not going to use a soft shoe because you may then use a torn shoe, a torn leather shoe. Because it's soft, it is still possible to put it on, strap it on. But even though it's torn and a lot of the foot is exposed because there's torn parts of it, so it's something that you could still use. When it comes to a sandal, you don't have to worry about it. The sandal is hard, and so if it's torn or broken, then there's no way to wear it at all. So no need to make a gezerah. So maybe that's why you should not use a min'al. Ina mishum hasi min'al. Or sometimes some people may use half of a shoe, half of a soft shoe. They would still, even though it only covers half of the foot, some people still use it. And so if you allow a min'al, someone might even use a half min'al, and that would be no good because the shoe does have to cover all of the guy's foot, and so that's why we don't use it for either of those two reasons. Okay, Amar Rav, ilav de hamite lechabibi de chalas besandal de itle shinsin ana la have chalis naila besandala de tayaa de mihadak tefeh. Okay, now regarding the sandal, there's different types of them, and Rav said, I saw my chabibi, my beloved one. He's referring to his uncle Rabbi Chia, just like in Hebrew we call uncle Dod, and Dod also means beloved. So too in Aramaic, Habibi means both beloved and also his uncle. Anyway, he saw his uncle Rabbi Chia, who took off a sandal that had laces. Now, if I had not seen him use this sandal with laces, I would not have used conducted chalitza with anything other than the sandal of Arabs. Those are tight-fitting and don't rely on laces to be put on. Okay, the point of all this is that the sandal does have to be attached well to the man's foot and not just slip off, because the halacha requires that the woman actually take off the shoe and not that it come off by itself. So she has to, if it has laces, she has to unlace it, unbuckle it, remove it. So the tighter it is on, the better. So at first he thought, only use this Arab type that is snug and she really has to remove it. But I saw my uncle use the one that is looser, but it relies on laces, so that's fine too. And now the regular sandal that was used in their time, even though it has a ring, some kind of buckle that or ring that is that helps tie the ties together. So even though it does have a ring, we nevertheless strap it for chalitza so that it'll be even tighter, and that way we know it won't fall off on its own, so that it'll be a proper chalitza. The proper chalitza, the point is that she has to be the one that loosens it and removes it. Nowadays, there are special chalitza shoes that Batei Din that do this have. They are kind of one size fits all, but they have a lot of laces so that they can be put on tight, regardless of the guy's shoe size. And the ones nowadays use all the different chumrot. They're snug fitting. They put the chumrata, these rings that hold it together, and also laces, and also a bow. And that's why it's a whole process, a special process to make sure that we cover all the opinions. Okay, so next we have 3 halachot in the name of Rav, and the Dumanic for them is Siman Hatarat Yevama Sandal. That's going to be the 3 halachot. The first one, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Hatarat. This is the Hatara, removing Hatarat Yevama Lashuk Bishmitat Rov He'akev. If a Yevama wants to go and marry someone in the marketplace, meaning untie her bond to the Yavam, she has to do chalitza by removing most of the heel, most of the man's heel. It's not enough if she just takes off, loosens or takes off a little bit of the shoe. She has to completely remove his heel from the shoe. And then she is also untied and can go marry whomever she wants. Okay, so that's the halacha. Now we challenge it. Metibe hutru resuot min al v'sandal o sheshamat rov haregel halisata pesula. This baraita says that if the straps of a min'al or a sandal were untied, or the yavam, he removed most of his foot, then the chalitza is not good. In other words, she has to be the one doing it. Hutru, meaning if the straps fell off or were untied on their own, or if he took off most of his foot, it's not good. She has to be the one that's actively untying and removing the shoe. Now, so it sounds like the problem only is that he removed most of his foot. But if she had removed most of it, then it would be okay. The Gemara notes that over here in this baraita to use the term regel, so we can infer that rov haregel in rov ha'akev lo. When she removes most of the foot, then it's okay. But if she only removes most of the heel, which is less than most of the foot, then it's not okay. So this is a challenge to the halacha of Rav, who said that as long as she removes most of the heel, then that is sufficient. So how do we answer? Lo hainu rov haregel, hainu rov ha'akev. It actually means the same thing. When we say most of the foot, we don't mean most of the entire foot. It means most of the heel. V'hamai karui le rov haregel dekula chela dechara ale dechayis. And why would you call the heel a foot? Because most of the pressure, the weight of the person, of a person's leg, rests on the heel. So the heel is actually the main part of the foot. As long as most of the heel is removed from the shoe, that's like most of the foot is removed from the shoe, and the chalitza is kosher. What we just said supports this baraita of Rabbi Yanai. Damar Rabbi Yanai ben shetirhu v'shamtahi ben shetirahi v'shamatu chalitzata pesula. If he unties the straps and she removes it, or she unties the straps and he removes the shoe, invalid. Chalitza is not valid. Asher tatirhi v'tashmithi. She has to do both the untying and the removing. So that supports what we saw before, that she has to do at least most of that removal. Okay, Ba'e Rabbi Yanai. Now, Rabbi Yanai himself has a question. Keda'athu mahu, serafathu mahu. What if instead of removing the shoe by undoing the straps, she just rips it off? Or she burns it while it's on his foot. Okay, that could hurt, but she's careful not to hurt him. So burns it off, and the point is that the shoe is no longer on his foot, even though it was never untied or physically removed in a normal way. So mahu galuye karabainan va'ika. Do you say the point of it is to expose his foot, and his foot now is exposed because the shoe is no longer on it. So it doesn't matter how it's no longer on it, whether it's removed properly or torn off or burnt off, doesn't matter, and it's okay. Or do we need a proper removing of the shoe? Veleka, we don't have that action. Teko, we leave that question standing. Another question. Someone's wearing two shoes, one inside the other or one outside of the other. So is that okay if you remove one of the shoes? So now which one are we talking about? If she removes only the outer shoe and leaves the inner shoe, for sure that's no good. We already saw this derivation that says she has to remove the shoe upon his foot, meaning the one that's directly upon his foot, and not the shoe that's upon something else that's upon his foot. So for sure that's no good. Rather must be talking about a case where she tore open the outer shoe but left it on. But tore enough of a hole that she can reach the inside one and untie and remove the inside shoe while the outside shoe is still on. That's the question. Do you need a removal of the shoe? And the inner shoe was removed. and it's okay. Or do you need the foot to be exposed? And here the foot is still covered by the outer shoe. Okay, we asked a question about that. Hold on, is there anybody that ever wears a shoe on top of a shoe? Yes, Rav Yudah, when he went out to the marketplace, he wore 5 pairs of shoes, like slippers, a type of slippers, one on top of the other. And so, yes, sometimes people do wear shoes on top of shoes. This question is left unanswered. We go to the second statement of Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav. Yevamot, we saw before, he's going to say 3 things, this is the second. Yevamot she'igdila ben achin muteret linaseh le'achad min ha'achin. A Yevamot that grows up with her brothers-in-law, meaning she was married, her husband died, and she grew up then she never didn't get Yibum or Chalitza right away. Maybe she was young, maybe the brothers were young, and she is growing up in the same house with her all her potential Yevamin. When they are ready, even if it's after a few years, any one of the brothers can do Yibum. Good. Why would you think otherwise? Because maybe while she was living there, one day, one of the brothers might have said, "Hey, can you give me a hand and take off my shoe?" Right? Maybe he came in from a long day of work and told his sister-in-law who's living in the house, "Please remove my sandal." And then, if she did, maybe that would be considered chalitza. And once one of the brothers does chalitza, she cannot do yibum with any of the brothers. So we don't worry about that, and she can still do yibum. Good. Tama de lo chazinan, ha-chazinan, chashinan. So now, what's the reasoning of Rav here? Is it only because we never saw them? Ask around. Do you remember ever taking off her shoe? Did anyone ever see her taking off the sandal of any one of the brothers? And says, no, we don't. We never saw her do such a thing, and so that's why it's permitted. But what if she did, in fact? And we know that yes, on such a date, I remember she did take off sandal. So then, do we worry that maybe in that case we would worry and we would not allow her to perform yibum? Behatanya ben shenitkaven hu v'lo nitkavenahi ben shenitkavenahi v'lo nitkaven hu chalitzata pesula ad sheyitkavenu shenehem ke'ehad. We have a baraita that in order for chalitza to be valid, you have to have intention that I'm doing this as chalitza, not just happen to be taking off a shoe. So the baraita says whether you need intention on both sides. If he had intention to do chalitza but she did not, or she did but he did not, the chalitza is invalid. Ad sheyitkavenu shenehem unless they both have kavanah. And so we wouldn't have to worry, even if she did in fact one day take off one of her brother-in-law's shoes, still it would not be considered chalitza because she just had in mind to help him out, and he had just had in mind to get some help getting his shoe off, but they didn't both have in mind to do chalitza, so it shouldn't matter. So we explain rather, we have to understand Rav's statement as meaning even if we saw, and she did in fact sometimes take off shoes for people. Nevertheless, we don't have to worry that maybe they both had in mind, this will be chalitza. No, they weren't thinking anything that you could see from the context. It was just that he needed some help to get his shoe off. Okay, vikadamre, that's one explanation. The other explanation, ta'ama de lo chazinan, ha-chazinan chosheshin. Yes, it's only, we can presume that she probably never did that. But if we know, in fact, that she did take off his shoe ever, then we would worry that it could be a proper chalitza. And what about the intention issue? Udkatana ba'e kavana, and that which you asked. Wait, we need kavana. When we said should they require intention for both of them to have intention, that means to make a full chalitza with full power that would allow her to go and marry someone from someone not related to the family. Then you have to make sure the chalitza is really good and make sure that both of them have intention. But if there's a chalitza act done, even without intention, we are machmir to say that she cannot do yibum with any of the brothers, because maybe that's chalitza is okay. So she's in like a limbo state. She cannot do yibum with one of the brothers, but the chalitza may not be good because they didn't have intention, so she cannot yet marry someone else. And therefore, she would have to get another full chalitza with kavanah. Okay, so that was so when we said the chalitza requires kavanah, that was only to permit her totally to marry to marry outside. But if they did any removal of the shoe at all while she was living there, even without kavanah, still we would worry about it, and she could not do yibum with the brothers after. All right, and finally the last statement of Rav, his last teaching. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, sandal hatafur bepishtan en hosin bo. If you have a sandal, even though it's mostly made out of leather, but it's sewn together with flax, which is not made from an animal, it grows, then you cannot use that. Shene'emar ve'en alech tahash, because Pasuk in Yechezkel says, I made you shoes out of tachash, and tachash refers to leather skin. So we see that na'al or min'al means something made out of leather, and has to be entirely made out of leather without flax also there. Next we ask, since we're learning it from tachash, maybe it has to be only from an animal called tachash. Only leather from a tachash animal, and not any other leather. What is a tachash? No one really knows. Some say it's a narwhal. Some say it's a giraffe. Rabbi Slifkin most recently thinks it's not even leather. But whatever it is, Gemara takes it as leather coming from some kind of animal. So perhaps it has to be specifically tachash, skin, and no other animal. No, it says na'al riba. Since it says the word na'al twice, that's coming to include more things. So not only tachash. Okay, na'al riba afilu kol mile name. Wait, if you're using na'al to say any kind of shoe, then that should mean no matter what it's made out of, any material, even a non-leather shoe. Imken tachash mayahanile. But then why would it say tahash? So therefore, because it does connect an alech and tachash, therefore it has to be leather. So that's what we learned. It has to be leather from the combining all three. Tachash teaches that it has to be like tachash. Na'al teaches that not specifically only like tachash, so therefore anything similar to tachash. In other words, anything that's leather, but it could be from leather from any animal. Hu shel or vit utres siyotav shel se'ar mahu. What if the shoe itself is made out of leather, but the straps are made out of animal hair, like goat's hair? So a hair does grow from an animal, so that's better than flax. Was that good enough? Amarle mila karinan be ven alech tachash. We said it. I made you shoes out of tachash, and as long as it grows from an animal, that's part of an animal, that's fine also. Good. Well, then how about if I make entirely wool shoe? That's all from an animal. Is that okay? I said, no. The problem is that's called a slipper. It's not called a shoe if it's not made out of leather. So it has a different problem. Here's a picture of what this karka would look like. A type of slipper made only out of hair. Amar le Rav Kahana l'Shmuel, mimay dehai vechalsa na'alo me'al raglo mishlafhu tichti vechildesu et havanim asher bahen hanagah. And now we're going to go in very interesting discussion, lexical discussion regarding the meaning of the word lahalotz. How do you know that v'chalsa na'alo means that she should take off his shoe? Maybe it means put on a shoe. And the answer is because regarding the sarat in a house, it says that they should remove the stones that are afflicted. So obviously they're afflicted, then you're removing them. So lachalotz means to remove, to take off a shoe. Hold on, but look another place. Zeruzehu, maybe it means to strengthen. Go and lachalotz, people for the army. To strengthen, and strengthening would be connected with putting on a shoe. All right, the soldiers are going to put on their boots that would be strengthening as someone's more strong with their shoes on. So wouldn't that mean putting them on? And we say no. The reason why it's called hechal is remove from you the people from their houses so that they can go to the army. So it does mean remove, removing to the army. Incidentally, if we look at a Bible dictionary, this is the BDB dictionary of the Bible, that has two entries for chalatz. Chalatz 1 is to draw off or withdraw, take out, or rescue. And chalatz number 2 is to equip for war. So it does in fact have these two completely different meanings, but maybe the derivation is in fact, as the Gemara just said, that it comes from the word remove, and when people move from their homes to go to war, so they are removing themselves. Right. Now another example. Yechaletz ani be'onyo. God delivers an afflicted person from his affliction. So doesn't that mean that makes him stronger, right? To strengthen, and that would, regarding shoes, that would mean to put on shoes. We say no. Bischad onyo yechaleso medina shel gehinam. If it was to strengthen, it would be. It could say be'onyo, me'onyo. God should strengthen a person from his affliction, but it says be'onyo. So the bet means in the merit of his affliction, he will be saved from, removed from judgment of Gehinam. So Yechaletz in fact does mean remove the poor person because of his affliction that he already suffered. That will give him merit. How about here also? It says the angel of God encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. So doesn't that mean give them strength, which would indicate putting on shoes? No, just like before, because of the merit that they fear God, God will remove them from a judgment of Gehinam. So here also it means remove. All right, so we have 100% a success rate that lechaletz always means remove. That Hashem will make your bones strong. So here it seems to definitely mean make them strong. How could you interpret it as withdraw or make loose? Someone once told me that asmotecha yachalitz, this phrase refers to doing chiropractic techniques, loosening the bones. Okay, but I don't think that's the peshat. So here it seems to mean Hashem will strengthen the bones, and strengthen is connected with putting on shoes. Amar Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Elazar says this is the best berachah, to have strengthening of bones. It's a positive thing, obviously. And Rava says specifically it means strengthening bones. So here, there's no way to say it means withdrawing or taking out. So we have to admit, in mashma hachi mashma hachi. In fact, the word lachalot means both things. It can mean to take out, remove, and it can also mean to strengthen, just like the BDB. The Gemara knew it way before. Now, how do we know here regarding chalitza which definition it means? If you would think that it means to strengthen, then it would say, meaning to put on, then the pasuk would say that she should put the shoe on his feet, be-raglo. Since it says me-raglo, so we see that it means to remove, right? Me'al raglo, it says. So that has to mean remove. Otherwise, it would have said be, to put on. Good. We say, hold on, maybe not. If it said beraglo, as you suggest, havamina beraglo in beshokola, then I might have incorrectly inferred that the shoe has to be on his foot, but not on his calf. In other words, if a person is an amputee, would think, if he has no foot, if he's amputated at his calf, then he could not do chalitza, but that's not true actually, because he could put a shoe on his calf, and then that would still be chalitza, and maybe that's why it says that. So katav rachamana me'al raglo dafilu b'shoko. So that's why it says me'al raglo, to teach me that even if it's above his foot at the point of amputation, it's still permitted. But maybe that's all it means, and it does not mean taking off. Maybe it still means putting on the shoe. We say no. Im ken chatav rachamana be me'al raglo. If it just wanted to indicate where on the leg, it could have said on the upper part of his foot, me'al raglo, and that's where you put it on the upper part of the foot is also of the leg is also okay. So it doesn't say that though. It just says me'al raglo. Since it just says from his foot, simply means shema'mina bishlafhu. Therefore means taking off the shoe and not putting on the shoe, even though the verb can have that definition in other contexts. Okay, and now we have a very, very interesting challenge. A certain heretic. From the context, we could see that it's talking about a Christian heretic. Who tells Rabban Gamliel, Amad halas le maremine techtiv besonam ubibkaram yelchu belevakesh et Hashem velo yimsau halas mehem. This heretic said, "You Israel, you Jews, you are a nation whose master has done chalitza to you. He has removed himself from you, and he's no longer your husband, no longer your God." As the pasuk in Hosea says, with their flocks and their herds they shall go to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him, because God has removed himself from them. So, in other words, God has done chalitza with the Jewish people, is no longer with them. Okay, this makes sense that a Christian would try to argue this argue this, because Christians believe in supersessionism. They believe that the berit between Hashem and the Jews has been stopped, and now it's been replaced with Hashem and Christians, and the Jews are no longer the Jewish people. And he looks at this pasuk, and it says God has done chalitza, and so if we read it his way, then in fact it would mean that just like a potential husband, the Yavam, does chalitza and that's it, cannot take her back anymore, has separated like divorce, so too it says Hashem has rejected Bnei Israel, and now that's it. The has found someone else. Okay, so this is a serious challenge. Amar le shoteh miketiv halas lahem halas mehem. And so the Rabban Gamliel says, no, you are a foolish person. Now look at the pasuk. You don't know your grammar well. It does not say halas lahem, that he did chalitza to them, but rather received chalitza from them, chalas mehem. Veilu Yevamot dechasu la'achin midi meshasha it be. In other words, the chalitza went the other way around. Not Hashem, who's compared to the husband, he's not the one that gave chalitza to her, meaning Bnei Israel, but rather she gave it to him. Bnei Israel did chalitza, or tried to do chalitza, to Hashem. But if a woman does chalitza, gives chalitza to a man, meaning she has her shoe removed, and the Yavam, the man, does chalitza, takes off her shoe, does that have any significance? Obviously it doesn't. It could indicate an unwillingness to be together, but it has no legal validity. So yes, it's true that Bnei Israel abandoned God for a certain amount of time, rebelled and went with idolatry and all that, but it has no validity, has no legal significance, and therefore can be repaired. And eventually Hashem can and will take Bnei Israel back. So this is a rejection of that Christian belief. All right, very interesting. Now next, we quote the Mishnah that says, Be'an pilaya chalisata pesula, using this shoe that's soft and like made out of cloth, like a sock. Is not okay. Now, remember the anpilia lav min alhu. So this seems to indicate that this anpilia is not a shoe. It's more like a sock or a slipper, and that's why it can't be used. And in fact, yes, we have a Mishnah that would support that, because the Mishnah Shekalim says, En hatorem nichnas lo bepargod hafut velo be'anpilia. ואין צריך לומר במנעל וסנדל, לפי שאין נכנסין במנעל וסנדל לעזרה. Back in the Mishnah Shekalim, we learned that the person that is going to go into the chamber where they keep all the machasit shekel, he goes in with the baskets to collect it, and he has to be beyond suspicion, beyond reproach. And so when he goes in, he cannot wear a garment that has cuffs in it, because we suspect he might take some of the coins and hide them in his cuffs and steal them. Even if he's trustworthy, we don't want him to even be worthy of suspicion, subject to any suspicion. So he doesn't wear that. He also should not wear these anpilia shoes, because maybe he will hide some money inside the shoe. So he doesn't wear anything like that. Now, for sure, you don't even have to say that he can't wear min'al or sandal, because that's a general rule. No one's allowed to wear shoes up on Har HaBayit. That's a halakha till today. For those who go up to Har HaBayit, you have to wear non-leather shoes. Okay, so we see from here that the anpilia is not included with min'al and sandal. Those are called shoes and therefore cannot be worn by anyone who goes up to Har HaBayit. Anpilia would be okay in terms of being a shoe because it's not a shoe. The only problem is you might hide money in it. So this proves that anpilia is not considered a shoe for the laws of walking on Har HaBayit, and therefore also is not considered a shoe regarding chalitza. So far that supports it. But we have a braita that will question those sources. Urminhu, ahad min al vesandal ve'anpilia lo yetayel behen, lo mibayit lebayit, ve'lo mimita lemita. Now we're talking about Yom Kippur, another law about shoes. So many different laws that have to do with shoes. One time there was a whole conference called Jews and Shoes. There's in fact a lot to say about shoes in halacha. So on Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to wear something that's defined as a shoe. And so here it says, whether it's a min'al or a sandal or an anpilia, one may not walk around from house to house, and not even from one bed to another, even within a house. No wearing shoes, and an anpilia is prohibited. So that means anpilia is considered a shoe. We're going to have a couple of answers. Number one, when it says it's forbidden, it's talking about the kind of anpilia that has cushioning in it. And it's very pleasurable, very comfortable to walk in. That's the one that would not be allowed because it's comfortable. That's not allowed on Yom Kippur. But if the regular anpilia is still not considered a shoe in terms of, so the problem is that, in other words, not a shoe. So therefore, you cannot use it for chalitza, and it's not a problem. You can walk on Har HaBayit with it. It's just that it's too comfortable, and that's why it's a Yom Kippur only law. Is the problem. That's Abaye. Okay. Amar le Rava mishum ta'anug belo min'al b'yom kippurim mi asire. Rava says, hold on. If you're telling me it's not a shoe, right? And that explains the first two laws. But because it's too comfortable, that's why you can't wear it. Wait a second. Is it true that because if something's too comfortable, even if it's not a shoe, it's prohibited? Are you not allowed to wear comfortable socks? On Yom Kippur or comfortable slippers? Rav Huna would wrap these nice, soft, comfortable scarves on his feet, and he would walk outside on Yom Kippur with that. Now that's comfortable, but it's no problem. On Yom Kippur, you just can't wear shoes, but you can wear something comfortable that's not shoes. So that's incorrect, Abaye. Ela amar Rava la kashya kan be'anpilia shel od, kan be'anpilia shel beged. Rather, Rava says it depends what it's made out of. If you have an anpilia that's made out of leather, that is in fact considered a shoe, and that's the last source was talking about. And a leather anpilia cannot be worn on Yom Kippur. Whereas the other sources were talking about anpilia made out of cloth. An anpilia made out of cloth is not considered a shoe, and that you go up to Har HaBayit on, and that you could not use for chalitza. Okay, good. Hachi name mistabera dilotema hachi kashya Yom Kippur ayom Kippurim, and this must be true. The second answer of Rava, because otherwise we would have a question from two braitot regarding Yom Kippur. There's a braita that says, "Detanya lo yitel el adam bekor dakisin betoch beto, avametehu be'anpilin betoch beto." Look at this braita. It says you should not walk around with these slippers in your house on Yom Kippur, but you can walk around with anpilin. So you see here that you are allowed to walk around with anpilin on Yom Kippur, and the previous Baraita said, no, you cannot wear anpilin on Yom Kippur. So how do you reconcile these two? Baraitot, elalav shema mina, kan be'anpilya shel or, kan be'anpilya shel beged, shema mina. Rather, the one that prohibits, the one before, is talking about when it's made out of leather, and this one must be talking about that it's made out of cloth. They're called the same thing, but that is fundamentally different. And so that is the conclusion, and this is very, very helpful, halacha l'maaseh, nowadays. If you want to wear something comfortable on Yom Kippur, comfortable socks or something comfortable that's not made out of leather, it's not about comfort, but rather the material that's made out of. Is it defined as a shoe, as a leather shoe? Only then it is prohibited. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.